Hello everyone and welcome to the latest edition of the press conference review. I am still here at the AXA. Arne Slot has spoken to us ahead of the big Merseyside derby happening on Sunday, and unfortunately this time, unlike the last show where there was no injury news to speak of, this time, as you all know, there's some big injury news regarding Hugo Ekitike. We do all know now that he's going to be out for a very, very long time, which is extremely sad. Unfortunately, added to that was the news that Joe Gomez is going to be unfit for this game as well. We all saw him come off after 16 minutes in the game against PSG, and there was a little bit of confusion as to why he came off. He didn't necessarily look like he was that injured. He didn't go down the tunnel. Slot said after the game that he felt like if he wanted to sprint, if he needed to sprint, he might have had some kind of issue, and as it turned out, it looks like it's an issue that's going to keep him out of this game as well, which is obviously a massive blow. Jeremy Frimpong is still currently fit, but you question whether or not he's fit enough to play 90 minutes. The thing about Liverpool at the moment is that from this point in the season on, there is one game every week, so recovery time might be something that helps him, but I dare say, I'm sorry to say this to everyone, we might be seeing Dom Szoboszlai playing some minutes of right back in the derby. Yeah. Okay, enough of that. On to the top takeaways. Top takeaway number one. Liverpool might not be having as busy a summer as everyone expected. Arne Slot was asked about the comments that he had about being a sell to buy kind of club, and he'd already by that point mentioned the fact that Liverpool were a trading club in this press conference. He was asked about it by Beth Lindop, and his response was quite interesting because Beth intimated that there wasn't quite as many sellable players, tradable players in the current Liverpool squad, and does that mean that there'll have to be some difficult decisions made on some of the others? And what Slot said, I am actually going to read the quote just so I can remember it. It says, at this moment, there's not a chance of a lot of players leaving. Of course, there's the Ubu contract situation. They might not need to trade a lot if you don't bring a lot of players in. Now, what that says to me is that, well, exactly what he said. He's not anticipating a lot of players leaving, therefore, he's not anticipating bringing a lot of players in. This chimes with some of the reports we've seen in recent days where the word is around the number 3 or 4 senior signings expected this summer, which, if you look at the way the squad is at the moment, it'd be interesting to see exactly where those signings are, because you can make an argument to say that Liverpool need 2 wingers, one on either side, preferably one who can also play through the centre now that Ekitike is injured. You could argue that Liverpool maybe need to look at another right back, considering the situation around injuries of both Bradley and Frimpong. Midfield, you could also say that there needs to be a freshening up there. And that's even before we get into the idea of whether or not, as Slot mentioned, Konate ends up leaving and what that means for the centre-half position. So for Liverpool to only be looking at 3 or 4 signings, based on that, might not necessarily be where everyone expects it to be. But the truth is that Liverpool did have a big summer last summer in terms of their incomings and outgoings and the spending in particular. And look, we all know how important it is that Liverpool generate their own money in the transfer market, including getting into the Champions League next season. But of course, the prize money they earn from winning the Premier League would have come a big way as well. And Liverpool aren't going to get any winner's prize money this summer. And there is a right to say that a lot of Liverpool's players who you may consider tradable aren't necessarily high value assets. The likes of Curtis Jones, Joe Gomez have got 1 year left on their deals, so they might not necessarily generate as much money as you'd have got from Darwin Núñez or Luis Diaz last season. So it will be interesting to see how that transfer plan works out. But for those of us who were expecting or hoping another revolutionary summer might reset this Liverpool side, it might not necessarily look exactly as you expected. Top takeaway number 2. The Ekitike injury does not change the Isak plan. Arne Slot was asked about how pleased he was to have Alexander Isak back, given the nature of Ekitike's tragic injury. And Slot said he was very pleased to have another striker back, and bemoaned the fact that literally the same game that Alex Isak made his first start, Ekitike was out for another long-term injury. But it did not sound like Arne Slot was in any rush to bring back Alexander Isak earlier than he can come back. We all saw how he was treated in the PSG game, in as much as he got the start, but he was told, and we were all told beforehand, it was only going to be 45 minutes. And it's clear, because of so many players have been re-injured this season, that Liverpool it makes sense for them to handle him with care. And despite the high stakes of all Liverpool's games coming up, the Merseyside derbies I mentioned, but also games coming up against Chelsea, against Manchester United and Aston Villa, there is no desire from Arne Slot to try to rush him back earlier than he needs him. And that's good news for Liverpool, because Slot did mention the fact that there are alternatives in the striking position. He referenced Cody Gakpo, referenced Federico Chiesa, which is all well and good if you're using them for half a game here, half an hour there. If Liverpool rushed Isak back too soon and then he broke down again, and then suddenly Chiesa and Gakpo are the only options, then it looks a lot different. Will Rooney also asked Slot about Jayden Dan's progress, and it seems like he is making progress, but he's not even started 90 minutes for the under-21s yet, so it feels like a long shot for him to come into the mix at some point this season as well. So Liverpool really have to be careful with this asset. And again, Slot decided to mention the fact that a lot of people decided that it wasn't a good idea for Liverpool to buy Ekitike and Isak. Some people said it wasn't needed. I think that one has been cleared up conclusively. Top takeaway number 3, the performance of the ref does make a difference. Slot was asked about the intensity that he was expecting to see from Everton and from the fan base in the first Hill Dickinson's derby. It made reference to the fact that in the last Goodison derby, some of the players and indeed managers saw them emotion boil over in reference to Slot obviously getting a red card and Curtis Jones as well. Now, what Slot said I thought was fascinating, because he said it wasn't the crowd that got him upset, it was the referee who got him upset. And that kind of brings in a really important point here. We've seen in other Merseyside derbies down the years this fact, particularly the Everton home game, where some referees have decided to kind of be a little bit more lopsided with how they call certain things, particularly some fouls. We've seen Liverpool's physicality being used against them quite a few times in recent derbies that have been lost. So how the referee decides to manage these things is very important. Now, the interesting thing here is that Everton aren't particularly happy with the choice of referee, Chris Kavanagh. They are still upset by a litany of decisions that he hasn't given them in the past, including the handball penalty for James Tarkowski on the opening day against Leeds, the non-handball given against Rodri in Man City game in 2022, which, to be honest, I think we all are a bit upset about that one. But I think you're looking at the numbers, it's 2 out of the last 12 games refereed by Chris Kavanagh at Everton have won. Although, it should be pointed out, one of those was the derby at Anfield. Admittedly during COVID, but it counts in the record books. The point being, you can look at the players as being influential in the game. You can look at the coaches as being influential in the game. You can look at the fans as being influential in the game. But unfortunately, the ref is as well, particularly at a time when Liverpool aren't playing well enough to take that margin of error out of the equation. It could be it comes down to 1 or 2 tight decisions, and for that you need to have a strong referee. So as much as he didn't exactly go in deep on refereeing decisions in the same way he did in the post-match press conference after PSG, the fact that Slot mentioned the referees at all, I think is quite telling. Now let's hear what he had to say about my question, which is talking about Liverpool's wretched away record. I wanted to ask you about Liverpool's away form. There's been some big wins, particularly in the Champions League, on the road this season, but your last 6 games you only won 1 and lost the other 5. So I just wondered what it is that you seem to have lost from that performance on the road that you were hoping to get back on Sunday.
Yeah, you know better than me, because I wouldn't say you know better than me, but you know a lot about data, and me also. But I think it's always important to know what game will we play, when. So I know, as you might maybe also know, that we lost quite a lot of games after playing in Europe. And usually, as we also know, that we play on Wednesday night in Europe an away game or a home game, and then we play the 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. So that has proven to impact any team in the world, and it has probably impacted our results in away games after playing in Europe also. I don't know if all 6 of them you are mentioning all been played after a midweek game, but I think quite a lot of them were. The good thing now is that we played on Tuesday, and the next game is on Sunday. so that cannot impact that. But as we also know, it's not only difficult for us to win away games in the Premier League. It's difficult for every team to win games in the Premier League, let alone winning the away games, let alone if you've played in Europe and there are only 2 days in between, which we've had a lot of times this season.
So, effectively, Arne Slot challenged me to find stats about exactly when all of these 5 out of 6 defeats came. And you'll be surprised to know that actually only one of them came in the weekend after a midweek European game. Now, part of that is because 3 of those 5 defeats actually came in midweek. 2 of them in European games, away at Paris, away at Galatasaray, and then of course the Tuesday game away at Wolves. So it's not necessarily exactly that same scenario that's caused Liverpool issues. And to be honest with you, it's not really an excuse that Liverpool should be able to use, because playing midweek weekend is something that they should be used to. It's something that they should go into every season expecting to do. Liverpool played 24 games so far in 2026, and only 4 of them haven't been 3 or 4 days after the previous game. And of those 4 games, Liverpool have only won 1 and lost 2. So it's something that they should be used to. It's something that's par for the course, an occupational hazard, you could call it, of being a Liverpool manager. So as much as Slot says that it's not something his team has to deal with anymore, it's not really something that should have caused them as much issues as it has. But anyway, we will be discussing more of this after the match itself. I'll be doing a match report from the Hill Dickinson Stadium, where we will be dissecting exactly how well Liverpool have managed to deal with this challenge. But that's all from now for the press conference review. Thank you for watching as ever. You will catch me on the Anfield Wrap. You'll catch me on the Late Challenge. We've got a special show coming out very soon. Keep an eye out for that. And I will still be writing in all the usual places. So for now, I'll see you soon.